Listen. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Let me get back to that one. First, let's go to a quick review, right quick. I mentioned earlier, and I want to mention it again now, that I got some more calls about the issue with Kobe Bryant, right? And I said that there's a lot of people saying, a lot of Muslims saying, hey, we're along with you, and Kobe was this, that, and the other thing. And the people called me and said, I would tell them, what do you say? How do we respond to this? Why are you saying that we shouldn't do that? And I answered that question, and I'm answering it, putting it here for us to remember, is that everything that we do has a place in Islam, right? No, yes. And everything that we have to do, there is a precedent for us in the Sunnah, right? And the Sunnah is put in context of what? The Seerah, the life of the Prophet. So, if we look at the life of the Prophet, we see this one individual. His name is who? Abu Talib, right? Now, who is Abu Talib?
Ali's father.
Ali's father, but more than Ali's father, who is he? So he's the Prophet's, protector, right? And supporter, right? However, he was a kafir, right? But as a kafir, we can say he was the best kafir in the world. Meaning his deeds. What did he do? He spent his money, he spent his back to protect the Prophet ﷺ and to support the Prophet ﷺ financially and physically, right? And he threatened everybody else and told them, if you touch him, I kill you. Literally, he says this, right? Not only that, he gets kicked out of his house. Him and all his kafir, the subordinates, they leave their houses willingly to show support to the Prophet ﷺ. Does that make sense? Yet and still, what does Islam teach about Abu Talib? What does it say? What was his end? He's going to be in the lightest part of the what? Fire. He does not get the Jannah. Does that make sense? So then what is the benefit of that story in our fiqh? Okay? That there can never be a kafir who did anything better than Abu Talib did. Right? There can never be a kafir who spent their life doing any better deeds than protecting the Prophet and supporting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so,
also, I'm sorry, and he also made shahada that the deen of Islam is the best deen.
Naam, and he also declared that the deen of Islam was the better deen. Okay, he made this declaration, yet he did not enter. Does that make sense? So now, with all of this before him, can we say now that any kafir we meet did something better? No. So then what our stance, if we're following the Salaf, we're following the Sahaba, we have to take the stance that the Sahaba took with Abu Talib. And when Abu Talib died, the Prophet ﷺ told Ali, go out and unceremoniously bury the old man. He used a derogatory term. Go bury the old man. And we have to put it in context. What did the kuffar of the Quraysh want to do? They wanted a big celebratory burial, right? Because he was the leader of the Quraysh. And the Prophet ﷺ disallowed that. And what did Ali do? He snuck out at night and buried him someplace where no one would really know about it. They couldn't celebrate. They couldn't do the things that they did. What's the point? That since that was that person, we have to take in our life any other person that comes afterwards and deal with them in like manner. And Allah tells us numerous places in the Quran, you won't find the believers, those who believe in Allah on the last day, showing this type of love to the kuffar, even if it's their what? Their fathers, their mothers, their brothers, right? You won't find them, or their children. You won't find this in the believers. So for us or anyone that's Muslim to show this type of thing, it's a taking away from their deen. It's taking away from their aqidah. It's taken away from their wala while their bara. Does that make sense? Because one of the issues in wala and bara is disassociated and not speaking so highly of the kuffar with regards to their physical wealth while remaining silent about their behavior. With this person, Kobe Bryant, he was a basketball player, right? Do we know any Muslims that know him? Yes. What's his name? Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal is a basketball player. He's a Muslim. He refused to play with this guy. He got a deal. Those of you guys remember, He got a deal years ago to come from Orlando and join the Lakers when Kobe Bryant. He refused. He took a $1 million paycheck cut just to get away from the guy. And was he known for being a caring person? No, he was known to be a ball hog and to care about nobody else on the team but his stats and what he wanted to do. How do we praise an individual like this? When the only Muslim we know that knew him refused to even work with him, almost had fights with him and lost millions of dollars just to get away from him. We have to put things in context. And one of the things that we don't like, we want to turn Islam into our own feelings. Okay? As opposed to doing what Islam says, submitting and breaking our idea to conform with the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the issue. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, that's what I want to say about that. Moving along, we're on the issues of Wala wal Bara by Shaikh Fawzan. Okay? And Shaikh Fawzan mentions 10 issues that show that that a person has allegiance and alliance to the kuffar. The first one was imitating them in dress and language. And Shaikh Fawzan goes on to say that we should not dress like them, okay? And we should not even talk their language. Yes? I handed it out. I only had 2 handouts, but I want you all to make copies of it, and I'll pass it on to you how you can get it, okay? Inshallah. And he says we shouldn't dress like them. We shouldn't talk their language unless we are forced to, right? And that's what our stance should be. The second issue he mentions is residing in their lands and not moving to save our deen. Okay? Not making hijrah. And he mentions that what he's talking about is not making hijrah. Okay? Refusing to make hijrah to save our deen. Okay? Briber. Okay? So this is what, and this has to be important to look at. Not moving. It's not just residing in their lands, not moving. You get my point? Why? Because this allegiance, this mindset that we could be better. I think Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz said it the best when he put it in perspective for the house Negro and the field Negro. When the field Negro said, what do you mean, where else? That's not even an issue. Anywhere else is better than this. Isn't that what that, and we all said, right on, brother. And then went home. Does that make sense? So we have to not make it rhetorical, we have to make it realistic. And a lot of reasons why we don't go to the lands where there's more Muslims, okay, where there's a better quality of life for our deen, is because of the quote-unquote physical amenities that we believe we'll be losing by leaving this land. Okay? That's what our whole thing is. Some people say, well, I have sugar diabetes. Well, you don't think people have sugar diabetes anywhere else? Probably not. So there's a better reason to leave, right? But, you get my point, guys? Just because you have some particular situation, it doesn't mean you can't get that dealt with elsewhere. And maybe it might even go away. And I told you that when I was in Mauritania, there was a guy who came over and he had high blood pressure and he had only a certain amount of pills. And back in those days, he couldn't get no more pills. So he went to the herbalist and they gave him some type of herb to take with that, and by after 2 years, he was off all of that stuff. And guess what? He didn't have high blood pressure no more either. Because part of the high blood pressure was that life he was living in the United States and all those different stresses. And part of the reason you're hearing the adhan and then reading Quran every day. Does that make sense? So we need to look into that. And I'm not saying you can't get some benefit in other places, but let's look at our deen. Let's see what Shaikh Fawzan says. The third issue, he says, traveling to the lands of the kuffar. 3. Traveling to the lands of the kuffar.
Traveling to the lands of the kuffar.
Come on, please say it loud.
Traveling to the lands of the kuffar for tourism.
Say it, for tourism.
For tourism and vacation.
For tourist reason, for tourism. Tourism and vacation. This is another sign of allegiance and alliance to the kuffar. Even this becomes a super major sin when you do this and you haven't made Umrah or Hajj. When you say, oh, I'm going to Disneyland, right? and you pack up your family, you drive all the way to Florida or fly to Florida, and you should have went and made Umrah. And you haven't done that. What a better thing to do than taking your children, spending those thousands of dollars and going to make Disneyland. And what would have happened if you took them to Mecca and they made Umrah? At whatever age they are, how much of effect, what different effect that would have on their psychology? Does that make sense? So here it is, traveling to the lands of the kuffar for tourism and vacation. And he mentions, like I said, you guys can read what he says about the reasoning. Number 4, helping them gain victory over the Muslims. Please? This is a major issue that everybody in the United States, Canada, UK, France, Australia, all of us take a share in. Okay? Do not think you are free from it. Just being in the country helps gain victory over the Muslims. Okay? When you study the issue, just being there, our residency in and of itself is a help against. And they use these in the UN to show that their superiority and the proof of the lack and the inferiority of the land of the believers. And the monies that we use, and the economies that we support, and the jobs, and every job in any country is in support of that country. In their interest, the oil. I'm talking about all the jobs, all the infrastructure jobs. That helping the inside, and all the other jobs are helping their politics. So no matter what you're doing, you're helping their bottom line. We are. Okay? So don't think, well, I'm not working in the military. Yes, you are. Your country, your company, whatever it is, there's all this is deal in touching with each other. Okay? So we like to kid ourselves in saying we're not, but we are.
Paying taxes too.
Of course. That's just the lightest of it, though. I mean, actually, your career. Okay? Seeking their aid. Number 5, seeking their aid. Please speak up, guys.
Seeking their aid.
Seeking their aid and trust, and putting them in positions of trust. Of trust, so that they know our secrets. So that they know our secrets. Some of these things are in direct violation to ayat in the Quran. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them, don't take them as your belong. Don't take them as your intimate person that you go to seek. And tell them in your private, I was dreaming about doing X. No, you don't tell them those things. I've always had a problem with my brother. You don't tell them none of your secrets. And this includes going to them. I'm going to go to the psychologist and tell them about, he's going to tell you what? What is the psychologist going to tell you? His aqidah? He's going to tell you how to think, right? He's going to tell you some fiqh, how to solve something. You get my point? And they're giving you this direction. They become your advisors. And just think about what we're saying here. What we're doing with that. Well, there's some truth with it. Then why don't you go to a kahin? There's some truth with them too, right? You get my point? This one person goes to a sorcerer, does the astrology thing and the horoscope, and then they come and give you advice, and you take it? No, this is something that is crazy. We say, well, the Muslims don't have. The Muslims do have. We just don't look. We just make an excuse and say, okay, I'm not going to deal with that. And then we don't want to accept the statements of the different scholars when they go to articulate some of these points. Okay? And we don't want to have the same type of conversation where it's lengthy and things like that. Yes, ma'am?
We have Muslim psychiatrists that also we go to. Is that?
Depends. It's okay, what about the Muslim psychiatrist, whatever the thing is? Again, it depends on what scale they're using to judge you with, to give you advice with. Just because someone is a Muslim doesn't necessarily mean that they understand the psychology of a Muslim. And this is why we talk about aqidah being so vital and important. Many of us are unknowingly kafirs in the mind, or living with a kafir mindset. Okay? And it's so distasteful to hear. Okay? But if we investigate it, like I should trick people, not trick them, but make them think. Trick people meaning trick them into thinking. Okay? When I say, what's today's date? You know? And whatever they say lets you know what their mindset is. And I say, no, what's the real date? You know? And then if they say, oh, January, then you know their mind is that this is real. Does that make sense? But if they don't, they say the Jamadu Thani, then you say, okay, well, we know this is a person who's thinking like a Muslim. Attention to detail in those things. You get my point? That's where his heart is at. And that's very important. Because a lot of people, sadly, especially with children and stuff like that, that's when you see a person's psychology. That's when you see what they really believe in. Ahmed ibn Hanbal, and you know these guys talk about what do you call it, jarh wa ta'dil all the time, right? At least they used to talk all that stuff all the time and not really know what they're talking about. But Ahmed ibn Hanbal, he used to say, don't come to me telling me who this person hanging out with and saying making jarh wa ta'dil. Bring his children. Bring his children. Children don't lie, do they? The children are going to tell you what they on. The children are going to show you what they all about. Who are those children's heroes? That's what you feeding your child. That's what you believe is right. Otherwise, you wouldn't give it to your child. So if your daughter or your son knows Dora the Explorer, knows Superman and Spider-Man and the Avengers and all these other weirdo people, but don't know the Sahaba in the same detail, you get my point? Then you've been feeding that child a whole bunch of lies. Call it what it is. A whole bunch of lies filled with shirk. Thor is a god according to these people, right? And then you give him a picture of what a princess is supposed to be looking like, and that's an Alexandrian princess as opposed to a sultana. And so when they see a sultana, it's foreign to them. And they don't relate. And don't want to act or look like. Oh, but they're children. What is that supposed? That's not an answer. That's a fact that they're children. The purpose of childhood is to enable the child to get along without the parent, not to drug the child into kufr. When are you going to turn them into Islam? And what we see is you wait too late. What happens? Now the child's a teenager or 10 years old, and you say, well, it's still too early. It's too early to teach them about Quran, but you're taking them to the early school program to teach them about all those other things. It's not too early for that. It's too early for Islam, but not too early for Dora the Explorer and all these other things. Or Superman or the different cartoons. You get my point, guys? No. So we have to, and it's, oh, well, I want them to have fun. Well, that statement is to imply that doing Islamic things is not fun. You get my point? That's what that is. And that means that's that person's, mentality. And we see this all the time in psychology. We'll see a parent walking around with a child, and the child says, oh, I want to taste those cherries. Oh, we don't like cherries. She don't like cherries. Child ain't taste them yet. But now what does the child say? We don't like cherries. You get my point? So now we're teaching that person things, and we're doing the same thing, not just with the physical, but with the psychological as well. And that's why it's vital and important that we learn our deen from people who know their deen. And not only just know the deen, know your culture. So they can point out the kufr and the shirk in that culture. And that's the study of Aqidah. Yes, ma'am.
I guess you're going to answer the question about it. It was just kind of like a follow-up question because I know there's
Sure.
an imam that's also a psychologist who does like counseling and things like that.
Same thing she said.
Yeah.
It depends on the level of knowledge that person has of the deen. You get my point? Because a true study of the deen is a study of the psychology. The first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in there, okay, I'll give you an example. Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, radiyallahu anhu, he was asked, Man a'qal an-nas, who is the most knowledgeable person, most intellectual person? And he said, so-and-so. So-and-so is the most knowledgeable person. And so they said, well, let's go check out that guy, see what he's doing. And when they found him, he was studying the Quran. He was, muqbilan ala al-Quran. He was busy studying and learning the Quran and doing actions that would get him to the hereafter. So they called him a zahid. Okay? And so they understood that what Ibrahim an-Nakha'i was saying, that the most intellectual person is the one that understands the book of the law the best. Okay? And is applying that to get his hereafter. We got her, we see her. She's okay. You know? That's doing that, those things are going to get him into Jannah. If you do the things that are going to get you into Jannah, then your dunya is already taken care of. You get my point? It automatic. But if you do things for your dunya, it doesn't mean your hereafter is taken care of. You see why I said he's the most intelligent person? And the only way you can know that is if you know the Quran. Too many times we've been Muslim and we don't know the Quran. And that's our problem. The very beginning of the Quran talks about the psychology of the people. The whole beginning is just a big talk about psychology. And every juz after it talks about the intellect of the heart. Right? But how many of us recognize that the heart has its own intellect? Or we believe what the Westerners have told us, that our intellect is in our head, and that's it. You get my point? You say, well, I haven't thought about it. Well, that's your fault, that we haven't thought about it. Because we're told to tadabbaru the Quran. Not what happened on The Sopranos. Not the thing where the guy is going like this. I forget the name of the thing. You know, but people spend time and effort breaking those things down and psychoanalyzing that nonsense. Does that make sense? All right. Let's jump into this. So I want to finish this today, inshallah. Because it's vitally important that we get this and we think about this. So, seeking their aid, putting them in positions of trust where they know the secrets, and making them our advisors. Okay? The sixth issue that Shaykh Fawzan talks about, using their calendar. Maybe you heard this before. Using
Their calendar instead of,
say it, guys.
using their calendar instead of
Using
Islamic
their
calendar.
calendar is instead of.
And the Islamic calendar.
Instead of the Islamic calendar.
And more importantly, observing their holidays on their calendar.
That's going to be that should go to the next one. Okay? Inshallah. So, using their calendar. Okay? Because what happens, this one here goes directly, it's like one action makes you fall into the other action. You know, like one of the things I think I spoke about it here about astrology. Yeah. And I said that if you look at the moon, like we're supposed to be looking at the moon every month, right? Yeah. And if we did, we'd notice when it's the 13th, 14th, and 15th. We get used to that, and we know to fast during those days. And we know that the high tides that are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon is also having us making our blood boil, right? And that's why we have sudden, violent and unplanned, actions during the 13th, 14th, and 15th. So what does Allah Messenger tell us to do? Fast. Slow us down. We start to understand the Sharia. Well, if we look for the Hilal every month, we know it starts on this side, and then there's another one on this side. It comes twice a month. The Prophet told us about 4 dua to make when you see the Hilal. We're missing all those barakah, right? And then we're off the fitrah, right? We're off the natural disposition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set us up on. So we don't even feel like the new month is coming or feel like the new month is the month is ending. We don't get that at all. Does that make sense? And when the month is getting ready to come in, we're looking for the new Hilal, right? What do we have now? Expectations of what that new month brings. If it's Sha'ban, there are things now we start thinking automatically. If you start thinking what comes in Sha'ban, what comes in Rajab. Just like if it's April, we're thinking of April Fool's Day, aren't we? We're thinking of May Day when it's May. We're thinking of what to do in June and in July, even though we don't celebrate the 4th of July. We think about those things that are tied to those Kafir days. Does that make sense? So naming them and calling them and using that calendar automatically makes you recognize and think about their Kafir holidays. And keeping to their fitrah and looking at the moon and makes you automatically, your aqidah becomes what's in Rajab. What is Jamad al-Ula? What do we think about that? What's going on there? And then you become more familiar with those things, right? Yeah. To the point that many people don't even know the months of Islam. Besides Ramadan and Dhul Hijjah. Then they're just so unfamiliar, they can't even name them. Or even spell them. Or even know what they mean. Because they're meaningless to them. Why? Because it's not real. Okay? It has no place in their action, in their life. No application. And that's wala wal bara to Islam. They're having an allegiance to the kufr and a disassociation in the literal term to the Islamic lifestyle, which is the deen of Islam. Does that make sense? So this is why we deal with this issue early, because wala wal bara is the fiqh of our aqeedah. I know everybody's talked about aqeedah for so many years and they never told you about that. They never mentioned it. They just talked to you about Allah, the names of Allah, Asma al-Husna, al-Talab wal-Qasd. That's just one aspect of it. Okay? None of those things were written by the Prophet ﷺ or Sahaba. They came after, which is normal. But what did the Prophet tell us about? He told us about the ilm al-ghayb. What did the Mufassirun say? They said a quarter of the Quran is about the al-ghaybiyat. Khabar about the ghayb. The information about the unseen things, the lives and the actions of the prophets. What's going to happen in the hereafter? What's going to happen in the grave? What's going to happen in the reward? Jaza al-khair wa jaza al-shar. Does that make sense? That's part of our aqeedah, isn't it? What's the first thing Allah said? He said, yu'minuna bil ghayb. And then after that, we talked about the hour. The 10 things that Allah mentions about the hour. And then after that, the whole Quran is talking about wala wal bara. Okay? How those who associate with Allah, what was their reward? And how those who disassociated with Allah, what was their reward? Isn't that correct? Yeah. So that taqseem, that breakdown is also vitally important for our aqeedah. Okay? And not just associating with what happened in the past to somebody else, but taking what happened in the past in light of seerah and putting it into application today. Like Abu Talib. So if we know the story and we understand the importance of what it means that Abu Talib is the best kafir that ever lived and he's in the fire, we can take any other kafir that comes after it and know that he's in the fire. Right? And all the ayat that mention what happens to them. وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذْ يَتَوَفَّى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَضْرِبُونَ وُجُوهَهُم وَأَدْبَارَهُم وَذُوقُوا الْعَذَابَ الْحَرِيقَ. If you could only see when the kuffar souls are being taken by the angels and they're punching them in the face and kicking them in the backside, saying, taste this, the pain and the punishment of the fire. Then we would never think that some kafir's having some good end. We wouldn't. If we could see that it's not befitting that those who believe in Allah, right, that they would still have hope for them after it's been clear that what happened to them. When we see the story of Ibrahim and understand what's supposed to happen, what happened when Ibrahim's father died, he stopped. Our hopes is why they're alive. Once they're gone, then it's clear what happened to them. Does that make sense? Now that's aqeedah in practice. As opposed to just talking theory about something that's not related to our reality. Does that make sense? Now, using their calendar, this is wala wal bara. So we check ourselves on whose calendar, and we know we have to struggle with this because we've been trained to study to use that calendar. So we have to put effort in. Every effort you make, Allah's rewarding you. The best act of ibadah is dhikr Allah. Why? Because nobody knows if you're doing it except Allah. It's not an external act, so there's no riyah whatsoever in it. And this is why wala dhikrullahu al-akbar. And this is why the statement that the remembrance of Allah is the greatest thing. No shirk. So while you're struggling internally to tell yourself that this is Jumadul Ula, Jumadul Thani, you're trying to force yourself to believe it. Allah's rewarding you. Does that make sense? The next one, 7, is observing their holidays.
Observing their holidays.
Now, observing their holidays is done in a few ways. One of the ways is actually practicing it. That's the worst. Another way is just being there with them. The third way is congratulating them. Does that make sense? It's different aspects of the same thing. One is more extreme than the other. So it's all forms of observing their holidays. Merry Christmas. Oh, you too? No. Oh, thank you. No. Yahdikumullah wa yuslihi balakum. Find something appropriate to say. The same thing you say when they sneeze and they don't mention Allah. That's appropriate. Say, may Allah rectify, guide you and rectify your situation. That's appropriate to say. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
From the Sharia holiday, what is like the meaning of it?
The word holiday means day, holy day, sacred day. A day that's been made sacred or special for a particular purpose. Okay?
There's a lot of people, when you tell them Muslims, you know, you try to advise them not to celebrate, say, Thanksgiving, they say, well, it's not a holiday, it's only.
Okay, people, you know, one of the things, you know, man is the most thing man is argumentative. People who play word games all day long with you because they want to wiggle and worm about what they don't want to accept the serious. And this is not submitting, is it? You get my point? So is it your job to argue with them? No. You know, Allah's messenger said one of the things that came from the past and is and going now onto the future, if you don't feel no shame, do like you like. Right? Do what you like. See where it gets. Go ahead. As Mama used to say, go ahead with your bad self. See what happens. See, we go wrong when we overstep our bounds and now try to argue and fuss and fight with these people. All you got to do is tell them. Adinu nasiha, you sincerely tell them, and then you stay in your lane. You know? Don't go too far with it. Now, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, people want to do what they want to do. But then that should let you know who you should associate with. Okay? And where your allegiance is. A lot of people are claiming to be Muslims but acting like full-blown kafirs. Literally. That's why I said this issue of wala is humongously ignored as an aqeedah issue. It is the fiqh of the aqeedah. I'm sorry. Yes, it's the aqeedah of the fiqh. You get my point? The mindset. And I'm glad such a sheikh like Sheikh Fawzan mentions these 10 points. Number 8, what we went through today or yesterday with regards to Kobe. What does it say? Speaking well of them. Speaking well of them regarding their wealth, let's say their physical wealth, while ignoring their behavior. Okay? This is another thing. Oh, this one has this one. Yo, you forgetting who this person was? You get my point? We would not do that. Just put it on a physical plane. If someone was known to disrespect your mother, right? Someone was known to call your mother out her name and call her all types of things, anything but a righteous woman. And they had a lot of money and they did stuff. What would you say when they passed away? The best thing you would say is nothing. Right? But you didn't want to be talking about, oh, well, they had a really good, nice car. They played ball real good. You wouldn't say that. You remember how they were with regards to your mother. Right? How their behavior was and how that was. You say whatever. You know, we're told to let them have. Allah's Messenger taught us the deen. Once they pass away, they got what they got. You know, we don't have to say anything, but we're not celebrating, dancing in the streets, you know, but at the same time, we have a poised state of dignity, you know. Oh, what do you say about Taubah? I don't watch basketball. You know, it has nothing to do with me. Well, you heard about him. I never watched him. Honestly, I never watched him. You know, but I don't watch basketball or any of those sports. So, yeah. No. And that's it. You don't care? Not really. It's not, you know, I'm just as interested as a hockey player dying. Same thing to me. You know? What do I care?
You don't watch hockey?
I watch hockey. I probably would watch hockey more than I did. You know, I played that in the streets of New York. You know, but yeah, we play street hockey. But still, who watches that stuff? Not me. Because in the fiqh of it, it's a waste of time. The sports Allah told me to be inspired by was the ones He said learn how to fight. You know, do martial arts, learn how to swim, learn how to ride. Those are the sports that the Muslims are supposed to be involved in. You know, all that other stuff is distraction from what the Sunnah is. So we follow the Sunnah and all of that.
How many tears are you shedding for the Muslims that are dying every day?
Right. When that thing happened, 9/11, they were like, oh, well, what happened? I said, well, A month ago, 10,000 people just got bombed in what do you call it, Guinea Conakry. You cry about that? Well, then why I'm worried about 3,000 here when 10,000 just died a month ago? Okay? And y'all did it. Oh, we don't know about that. Well, that's your problem. I got other things on my mind. We don't have to be in line with them. And that's the problem with Wal-Bara, because it makes it clear. It's not drawing a line in the stand, it's a clear stance. And that makes people uncomfortable. Okay? And this is why it's so important. Are you going to deal with that uncomfortability? Are you willing to give that uncomfortability for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to establish this deen? A lot of times we won't. We want to make excuse. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't. No, I'm not sorry. I don't. Why? Because I have more dignity than that. What do you mean you have more dignity than that? Now I'm giving you dawah. I don't believe that your God has a son. Okay? So I'm not going to celebrate that day. I don't believe in astrology, so I'm not getting a tree. Because you walk by the house, hey, you want to get a tree? No. Why not? Because I have more dignity than that. Okay? I don't believe in astrology. I'm not getting a tree and put some moons and stars around it. Okay? And you can keep walking. If they want to talk about it, we can talk about it. If not, let them go on with themselves. I'm not trying to prove anything to them. But I know I'm on a clock with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that interaction is being gauged. What did you do when it was put to you? Okay? Or did you waver? Does that make sense? Speaking well of them regarding their physical wealth while ignoring their behavior. Number 9, and I speak about this all the time too, using their names. I can't hear you.
Using their names.
And this issue, again, I'm really happy that the Shaikh mentioned it in here, because these things, I mention them all the time. People think, oh, you're crazy. No, it's not crazy. It's wala wal bara. Who are you? Right? Who are we?
Dawn.
Dawn. As opposed to Fajr.
He said
Oh, John. Yeah. No, but seriously, who are we? And there's so many issues. This issue is so layered, and how it can be approached. What stops us? Okay? Now, some people could have issues. It could be like tax issues. If you have, in North Carolina, I was just looking at the law. North Carolina, if you have an outstanding tax issue, they may not allow you to change your name. Okay? Because, it might be a way to weasel out of that or something, or you have to make sure it's declared. There's different issues like that.
Mister.
But if that's not your situation, then you have to declare, who are you? Whose side are you on? And you can't say, well, I'm all the way on the side of the Islam, but everything else that you got, your whole thing is tied to the kuffar. The Prophet ﷺ, he said about Abbas, again, putting it to the Sunnah, right? Whenever we give something in fiqh, let's run it through the understanding of the Sahaba, run it through the understanding of the Prophet. During the Battle of Badr, Abbas was taken captive. He was a prisoner. Who is Abbas? The Prophet ﷺ's uncle, right? Did he support the Prophet?
No.
He did. When he was in Mecca, he supported him. He even protected him, right? He's his favorite uncle, so much so after Hamza, that when he needed something, he went to Abbas. When he wanted to get married, who did he go to? He went to Abbas. Abbas is the one that set up the marriage between him and Khadijah. When he wanted to go make hijrah, who did he take with to meet the people, the wafd, the group that came from Yathrib at that time? He took Abbas. And Abbas stepped forward and said, listen, you guys came from, the Aus and Khazraj, y'all came over here. If y'all not ready to die for him, right, and protect him like y'all protect your women and children, leave him here, because we got him. And they said, shut up, Abbas, we ain't come to hear nothing from you. Let the man speak. And so Abbas stepped back, and the Prophet ﷺ, he spoke. But you see, who he went to that secret meeting with was his uncle Al-Abbas, who was supporting him. Does that make sense? During the Battle of Badr, when they heard that back in Mecca, when Abbas's wife, Fadl, the mother of Fadl and Ibn Abbas, Abdullah, she's sitting at the Kaaba with Abu Lahab, and they're just hanging out at the Kaaba, and they hear that the Muslims won. The slave of Abbas snickered like, And then what Abu Lahab do? He popped him, bang, right? Hit him. You laughing about what you so happy about. Fadl jumped up and took a tent peg and busted him upside the head till he bled, and that led to Abu Lahab's death. She took a pen and said, how dare you hit my husband's slave and he ain't there? What kind of man you there? My husband's on the battlefield, you come over here beating his slave. You back here with the woman hitting the slave, you know? And she hit him upside the head with a tent peg, he ran away, okay? But she split his grill, right? And it got pus, and he died. So I'm saying his family, Abbas's wife, is the one who killed Abu Lahab. You get my point? Because he died like 3 days later or something like that. Or a few days later from that wound. And this is the same time of Badr. But at Badr, Abbas was taken hostage. When he was taken as a prisoner, he came in front of the Prophet. So he said, yeah, Rasulullah, it's me. He said, uncle, man, what you tell these dudes to untie me? Let these guys tie me up. You know I got your back. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said, what's apparent is that you was on the other side. What is apparent, okay, is that you was on the other side. Like that. And he said, now what you got to do is that money that you hid, you told your wife to hide and bury, that you got buried over there, you need to bring that money and ransom yourself off like everybody else. And he said, I swear by Allah, nobody knew I had that conversation with my wife but me and my wife. And he took his shahada at that time. And it's a very interesting story because right before that, Abbas's sister, like 3 days earlier before Badr, Abbas's sister had a dream that a man was screaming and standing on a mountain with his camel, calling out and saying, you know, that there was going to be a big horror and it was going to run out and it was going to take a caravan. And so she called her brother Abbas and told him, say, Abbas, I had this wild dream, man. Let me tell you about it, but don't tell nobody. So Abbas said, okay, I'm not going to tell nobody. What did he do? He went out and told somebody. That somebody went out and told somebody. So that somebody told Abu Jahl. So Abbas comes to the Kaaba to make, tawaf. And Abu Jahl is sitting there with his people. And he says, yo, when you finish, why don't you come sit with us, Abbas? So Abbas comes and he says he sees this little sharp-nosed guy sitting there. And he says, since it's not enough that your men in your tribe is going to be prophets, now your woman got to be prophets too? How long y'all had this woman prophet? And he said, what you talking about? I said, yo, you know your sister talking about, so in 3 days, it's gonna be this type of thing, it's gonna happen, somebody's gonna come in here screaming, So check this out. If it don't happen in 3 days, we're gonna call your tribe the biggest liars in the whole Arabian Peninsula. Now, you have to understand Arabs. When they get a word out on somebody, it becomes the speech. Everybody's gonna say this about that particular person. So Abbas didn't say anything. He said that night, all the women from Bani Hashim came to his house. Said, yo, what's wrong with you? You heard him say that and your mind didn't get offended? You just sat there and listened? There wasn't nothing, you couldn't say nothing back to him? And he said, he caught me off guard. He caught me off guard. I didn't think. He said, watch, I'm going to see him again and I'm going to say something, okay? So he said, I had it in my heart to get him back, okay? So on the third day, I saw him. And I made my tawaf and I started making my way around towards Abu Jahl. And right when I got ready to walk up to him, he turned and ran, okay? Ran out of the masjid. And I said, I wonder why he's trying to avoid me. But he had heard something I didn't hear. He heard a rider coming in, ripping his shirt, cutting the nose off of his camel so that it bleeds snot and it runs. And pulls his shirt off and says, Ya Allah, and starts yelling, screaming. The caravan, Muhammad and his people, they took the caravan. Your money's gone. We got to go. And they all ran out, everything. And that's the only thing that stopped me from confronting him. I was going to tell him to say it again. But when that happened, everybody was took by that awesome sight. And he ran out. They went to go to the battle. You get my point? So all of that is to put in the context that Abbas was, looking out, trying to say he was with the Prophet. But what did the Prophet ﷺ say? What is apparent? Because from that we draw a principle. Okay? What is apparent, you was on their side. You came out when you was on the other side. Forget everything else, what you say with your mouth. You rode out with the kuffar. That's what the Prophet ﷺ basically said when he said, what's apparent, you was with them. Omar uses that statement and says later on, after the death of the Prophet, we deal with what is apparent. We judge every matter on its apparent, what the proof shows us. Clear evidence. Whatever that stuff is hidden, we ain't got nothing to do with that. That's ilm Allah. That's what it's ilm al-ghayb. Does everybody follow me? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So, using their names is amongst the apparent things, right? And so we have to work and fight that so that we don't have this duality. Okay? The next thing, and the last one, is supplicating for them and being compassionate with them. Supplicating.
Supplicating.
Well, let's just say something. We don't use that word. Making dua for them.
Making dua.
Seeking forgiveness and mercy.
Making dua for them. And showing them the compassion that is only due to the Muslims. Why do we say this? Now, I'm not going differently just all by just what they translated here. I'm going by the rules, okay? But I'm just using his as a basis. And that's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Muhammad Rasulullah, وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ. He says a statement of fact, okay? When you find a statement like that, you can either conform with it or break with it, and that determines if you're part of it. Does that make sense? He says Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Allah says this in the Quran. And those that are with him, that's a condition, right? So if you want to be seen as being one of them, what did he say about them? Ashidda'u alal kuffar. They are firm. They're not rough, because we're polite. Okay? But they're firm with the kuffar. Ruhama'u baynahum. But they're compassionate and gentle with each other. They give each other a break. But they ask for the whole nickel from the kuffar. You know, they ain't taking no shorts, as we used to say back in the days. You know? And this is our mentality. This is how we roll. Does that mean we're rude to kuffar? The kafir says to you, good morning. Yo, shut up, kafir. No, that's not how we're supposed to be. No. Allah's Messenger said, we only against those who are against us. You know, they're polite, we're cordial and polite. But we have our limits. Because we know that we're going to have to keep in a position to maintain the dignity of our deen. You get my point? So we can't get all too buddy-buddy, because then they can say something or do something that's inappropriate. Does that make sense? So we in Brooklyn, we say we keep it official tissue. Keep it real official. So that nobody get confused on what time it is. Does that make sense, everybody? And that's part of our fiqh. And this is why we deal with this first. Before we get into all the different details, this is our general air that we're supposed to be aware of in the environment of our mentality. Does that make sense? All right, and this is only half of it. The other half is bara. And we didn't do that because we don't have time for that. The book is Al-Wala wa Bara by Shaykh Fawzan. It's only 35 pages. It takes you an hour to read. You know, if that, there's another 3 books called Al-Wala wa Bara according to the Quran and the Sunnah, and that's by Shaykh Muhammad Saeed al-Qahtani. It's both PDFs that you can find online. You know, they're free, downloadable. Just make them. Please have at least this book read by Monday. Please. So the purpose for that is so that we can join in a particular mentality and call to that. And that's part of our basic fiqh. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. I'm sorry, is there any questions? Yes, sir.
With regards to the fiqh of children or middle, when they're mukallaf, far as they're passing, like Kobe's daughter, what is it the same age as far as how do we understand that as far as their affair with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being?
If I understand the question is stating what should be our stance with regards to the children of the kuffar?
Not little children, yeah, that
or those murahik, those people who are middling age, whether they might be teenagers or not. Is that the issue? Okay, first thing is that we have to realize that are we mukallaf over worrying about that? Does that make sense? Or is it our responsibility to worry about that particular issue? No. We have a general stance with regards to that. If a child passes away, then that's a sad issue, no matter what child it is. You say, subhanallah, mashallah. Allah knows best why he did whatever he does. قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. That's our stance. That Allah in his infinite wisdom, he took that child's life, or allowed that child to lose his life. What, do we have an issue with that? Yes, we find, when I say an issue, do we have a precedence in that? Where's the first place we look for our precedences? In the Quran. Every week you read a surah where it talks about a child getting died. What surah is that? Surah Al-Kahf, right? And so we see that, and that's the first thing that should come to our mind. Allah caused that child to die, right? In Surah Al-Kahf. And his infinite wisdom, Allah knew best to do that. So we should always think that whenever that happens, it's in the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why he did that, whatever he did. At the very least, it's an example for all of us to cherish our children. Okay? And to be grateful that that's not our situation. And say, Alhamdulillah, alladhi afana mimma ibtalayhim. Alhamdulillah, that he saved us from what he's testing them with. And فَضَّلَنَا عَلَى كَثِيرًا مِمَّنْ خَلَقَ, and has dignified us higher and greater than most of the creation. If that's the only benefit that we can get out of it, that's a humongous and a beautiful benefit. But we don't have to think whether he's in Jannah or not. We're not mukallaf for that. We don't have to worry about that. Allah knows best. And then move on to those issues that concern you. Allah says in the Quran, thinking about this particular issue, not thinking Allah, but when I'm thinking about this particular issue, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ku anfusakum. What? Ahlikum. And focus on you. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, alaykumu anfusakum. He says, oh, you believe, focus on yourself. La yadurrukum man adalla idha ihtadaytum. Nobody's going astray is going to hurt you if you stay focused on the guidance. That's what Allah says. He said, focus on yourself. No one straying is going to harm you as long as you follow the right guidance. Okay? Don't worry about that. Focus on your children and be grateful for this, that you have them. That's how I would deal with the issue. Anything else? Thank you very much for the book. It was a very nice read. Please, everybody, read the book before Monday. Whoever has those copies, do so. Yes. Our brother Muhammad is in the hospital. I didn't know that, but those of us who can visit should visit. Abdul Hakim. Now, Abu Muhammad Abdul Hakim is in the hospital, and so we should visit him. Alhamdulillah, he visits us all the time and comes to the class. Yes, somebody said something else?
Yeah, A2, Arabic.
Oh, A2 Arabic. A2 Arabic is going, right? I tell you guys all the time that I am, I have A, okay? So I'm a professor, so I'm teaching all the time. Yes, A2 Arabic is online. Right now it's in the review stage, and if you want to take that course, you can take it with me online. Not a problem. And it's an online course, and it's intense, okay? But it's nothing that you guys can't handle because it picks off where A1 left off, okay? And it's a lot of reading, okay? A2 is a lot of reading, but the text that we're using is from the United States government, actually. It's the one that they use to teach their ambassadors Arabic, okay? Does that make sense?
No.
So we use that course. Why? Because that course is very specific in its goals. Okay, each one of the conversations, because I talk about scripting all the time, right? So they have scripted conversations. If you learn those, you're good. You learn how to say who you are, where you're coming from, what you want, and this, that, and everything. And it's very, very excellent right there. Added to that, there are also books that I provide to the students, and we deal with all types of the language issues that may come up. Excellent course. You can join the course now, yes. You can join. It's never too late to join the course, because anybody that has any problem, as long as you chase me down, we'll find time to get you and deal with whatever issue that is, okay? But I do not hold people's hands, okay? You have to, the knowledge is sought after, and it doesn't seek after anyone.
So you go on your website and
Hit the website, timbuktuedu.com. Sign up, and if that doesn't help, call Haji, just harass her. She's the one that signs everybody up. So all you got to do is do that, and she'll take care of it, you know, inshallah ta'ala. He wanted me to show you guys the book. I'm sorry, let me use it. This is a book on Al-Fadh al-Quran. It's like, we call it a concordance, if you want to say it in English. It has every word in the Quran and all of its declinations, meaning, let's say the word is fataha, so fataha yaftahu fattahun. It have all those different times, and when you find that word, then you can find all the places it mentions in the Quran. It's an easy way to look up the Quran. I was saying back when I used to travel a lot to give lectures around the world, I wouldn't even take a mushaf with me, because you travel, you don't want to take all the things. I would just take this, okay? And I'll bring mine in one day. It's got tape on it and everything like that. And all you need is this, because if you're thinking about a particular subject or an ayah, the ayah comes up, you can find out where it is and get all the supportive things and make lectures from it. Very, very good. And it helps you. Al-Fadh al-Quran. Al-Mufahris al-Quran. Okay? Dalil. This one is called Dalil.
Dalil, yeah.
Dalil al-Mufahris, right?
Mufaharis.
Yeah, Dalil al-Mufahris. The proof of the Mufahris.
Mufaharis is a listing, or like a table of contents.
Yeah, it's like a table of
Every
contents.
single word you can find it in the book. And whatever form it's in.
And if everyone gonna order one, we can order them together and get a better price.
I think this was published by, I think it was published by, well, I got bought it at Dar es Salaam when I was in Egypt.
Yeah.
10 years ago. So.
Yeah.